The structure of being is such that when there's a bunch of birds feeding at your feeder in the back of your yard, and there's one of them that's an invader bird that you don't like, that you want to chase away, then sometimes approaching implies having to chase them all away, since you can't make them scared and not scared individually without first training them more. It implies that the naive ethics and the structure of being is such that you cannot select with what you are coming unless there is already a saturatedness for it, and that in this sense you must approach with a neutrality and then make the differentiating factor apply before, in some sense, assuming that the whole motion would be selective at first. So it's kind of an insight into diplomacy as well, in the form of how first appearances can saturate very deeply, such that the whole of everything that happens thereafter is inflected by the things that came up, even if they were right or wrong in the first instance. Yeah. And that the truth of the last instance might not be justified because of the way the first instance took it beyond its naive moment, in some sense. Yeah. But also then, um, when one is friendly with birds in terms of giving them food, it's as well the other way around, that the food is available. It is everyone's to be bothered with and not one kind of bird alone. And so nature doesn't have this kind of a racism built in. But if you were to make, for example, such a system as to select the birds, for example, let's say you had a camera and a cage with a gate that can open like an airlock in a ship or something, and there was an AI program that could classify different birds, and you know that if it's a certain kind of bird, then the cage will go open and then they can eat there and leave freely. But the other birds, they don't get to enter. In that sense, it would be the case that there's a structural way of filtering things that is at rest as what transitions between ought and is, through making a discernment in the factor of is alone, where the ought is implied by how the software and the terms of cagement and opening the cage, closing the cage with the software effectuates a bias in being that is not a decisional bias insofar as it is structurally couched without a need for a correlationist coupling with experience elsewhere. Yeah. In that sense, it would be the case that some structures can be structured to be asymmetrically available for a subset of things in the field, and that what was bothered with the food then would have an alternative experience. For example, the birds that realize that there is food, other birds are getting food, and that they themselves are not benefiting in the same way due to being a different kind of bird, then implies perhaps a psychological structure of regard and valencing for this that could include emotions of feeling resentful, feeling jealous, or, those kind of things. Like how monkeys get jealous when the one gets a banana and the other one gets a grape. It's an asymmetrical thing, and they have social ideas of reference that are like their morality, and that most of life seems to be naively affected in this way, having a similar limbic system with similar set of economic givens in how the structure of associations between what happens and what emotions come up are particular, and at least so for this time in history, while there are not more differently saturated emotions that change this economy's going rate in some sense between all life on earth. Maybe in a different world structured differently, there would be other emotions and feelings to be had about different things that can relate even to this world and understand in translated terms how we mean to interact with the kind of music that being is to us. Yeah. Thank you. Them's are my 3 cents because I'm one extra.